Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, everyone. My name is Elijah. We are here today, just waiting and waiting and waiting for news. You hope that Framber Valdez will make up his mind one of these days. There are, I've heard through the grapevine that that there are stipulations that he needs to effectively sign a contract before February 3rd if he wants to pitch in the World Baseball Classic. That's because MLB needs to go ahead and find insurance for the contract that he eventually signs, just because um, they need to go ahead and ensure that in case he gets hurt in the WBC and a team gets very, very sad. They just paid a ton of money. So, um, optimistically could be coming in the next couple of days. That said, if it's a matter of 40, 50, $100 million, if teams are only offering him the short-term stuff, if that is the case, I would not blame Fromber for saying, no, I'm going to keep waiting and I will catch the next WBC. We'll see what happens, but there has been some good stuff happening. We have been dealing with snowstorms. I personally just got a small feline that keeps me awake at all hours of the night. And so we're obviously a bit behind, but uh, on January 16th, if my memory is serving, or January 15th, um, the international signing period opened. That is what I'm going to open with here. The Orioles kind of brought in a haul, and there are obviously different perspectives on these things, depending on which source you're going to. I'm going to give you the rankings from Baseball America and MLB Pipeline. They do agree surprisingly well, except on one individual person. We'll talk about that. Um, they do agree really, really well. Both agree that the Orioles got some absolute dudes. Uh, so I guess I'll just jump into it. I'm only going to talk about really the top five prospects that we got. That they are the big names, of course. So the first one, number 14 for MLB Pipeline, and if you're on YouTube with me, I'm showing Pipeline not because I think that they will necessarily have better scouting reports, better evaluations, anything like that. I actually think very much the opposite. Um, but they have a nice usable interface, and I will not need to control F through a huge. I guess I've got it up here as well if you want to look, but a huge document of 100 individual players just laid out as Baseball America did it. Um, so we're gonna click through, show you some pretty pictures. Uh, First name is Jose Luis Acevedo. He's a shortstop from the DR. He is just kind of a slick swinging, really, really big time hit tool. I guess for those of you on YouTube, I will go ahead and pull up some video. He like kind of has this pretty rounded swing. It's just gonna show ads. Never mind. I forgot MLB does this every time. So uh, we'll save the video. But 60 grade hit tool is the first thing they give him. Baseball America very much agrees with that. He is pretty wiry. He's still very young. I think BA noted he's going to play, or I'm sorry, it was MLB Pipeline noted he's going to play this entire first pro season at the age of 17. So he is young, as are all of these guys. I don't want to get it twisted, but pretty small dude. This has him at 6'1", 164. Man, that is tiny. So, he's tiny, but really, really smooth right-handed swing. They say he really does have the actions and the arm to handle shortstop. Very optimistic about him being able to stay over there. And yeah, there's not a ton of power there, but obviously things can change in the 4 or 5 years absolute minimum until he gets up to the bigs. But yeah, I mean, they say advanced defensively, even among a class of talented shortstops, natural feel for the position. It seems like you know this is the prize of the class. Um, and he was highly sought after. And we gave him, if I remember correctly, um, what was tied for the largest deal that we have ever signed with an international free agent. So definitely large large signing bonus. Excited to have him, I'm sure. Um, and the next dude here is 18th ranked prospect on MLB Pipeline, 22 on Baseball America. That's Ariel Roque. He's an outfielder. We're getting into a little string of outfielders here. Um, you know, all of these guys are still pretty small. He's listed at 6'0", 190, so he's actually a little bit bigger relative. um, but yeah, I mean, again, they say super athletic. They give him a 55 run grade, 55 in the field, 55 hit tool. Think he's going to be just like, yeah, again, super athletic. Um, and again, playing up the hit tool. I think that a lot of, I can back up a little bit. I think a lot of teams nowadays are somewhat uh, seeking out a hit tool and, believing that they can train bat speed, train power effectively, and they can go ahead and, give you the impact on the ball that you need to have to succeed at the next level. So you'll see these guys oftentimes have good hit tools. But yeah, another thing like they mention like a lot of polish at the dish here on MLB Pipeline. Oodles of bat speed is one phrase. Yeah, I mean, it seems like he's a pretty refined package. As far as it goes, uh, with these 16, 17-year-old kids. So, yeah, I don't know. Ariel Roque. Next guy here, Pedro Gomez. We're gonna slide down to 35. Um, Gomez is another outfielder, also from the DR. Um, yeah, they say it all starts with the bat here. He's got 55 hit tool, 55 power. Not all too much in terms of running, arm strength in the field, whatever. He is just a hitter, so that likely means just corner outfield. Of course, they only write outfield for these position players, but yeah, he's just gonna swing and he's gonna slug. That's pretty much his game. And yeah, we've got him at the 35 ranked prospect on MLB Pipeline, 38 on Baseball America. Going to jump down to Gabriel Rosario. Um, Rosario is yet another outfielder. They do have him listed at first base as well here, although I don't think Baseball America had that, if I remember right. Rosario is a big time power guy. They give him a 60 grade power. Yeah, I mean he's just kind of a lefty slugger, corner outfield type. I think that this is the other way you can go effectively, and I bet if we go back and we look at Samuel Basayo, he probably looked something like this, although I'm sure his arm was better. And obviously it was different with him being a catcher, but this is the other way you can go is you can get the big time tool and hope to build around that. The 60 grade power is unique. Both publications have him ranked as the 41st prospect in this class, and so I think that's it's again like a great floor. He's well valued. I think that something important to keep in mind with all of this is I'm looking at a top 50 prospect, or I'm looking at the top 100 prospects, but the Orioles pulled 5 of the top 50 from MLB Pipeline and 5 of the top 100 from Baseball America. If if you divide out some numbers out of 100 prospects, you should, with 30 teams in the league, get about 3 of these guys. Reeling in 5 of the top 50 or 5 of the top 100, depending on which list you're looking at, is obviously a big win. Yeah, I will note, like continuing on with Rosario here, he is 6'3", 200, so this is a bit of a bigger dude. They do note that kind of he gets a little out of sync with his swing. He is a bigger guy, and again, 16 years old. So, man, this kid was born in 2008. I think all these guys were probably born in 2008, but I just saw the date for the first time, and that's kind of I was in middle school anyway. So, Rosario, big time pop. They say he has some problems getting everything in sync sometimes. That likely leads to some in zone contact issues, zone whiff issues. This is, totally expected for a young guy and seems like another promising prospect here. And then the last guy I want to mention is, because if you've been listening to this podcast, you've been listening to me ramble about pitchers forever. Pitching is what I love, what I did at a very low level. And we are signing this guy, Andre Hidalgo, and Baseball America gave him the 80th slot in their rankings. The thing I will note about this is they only had, if I remember correctly, five pitchers in the top 100. And this was the number two left-handed pitcher in the class. So if you are just seeing like this 80 number and you're like, all right, he's kind of toward the back end. I don't think that really captures it. I think pitchers, particularly this young, have so much more risk involved. And that this dude's 6'4", 194, and I'm about to tell you he's throwing 98 miles an hour. So, you have concerns with long-term health. I think the risk in a pitcher this age is much, much, much higher than the risk of taking a position player. But that said, we're seeing Esteban Mejia lighting up radar guns um, in the complex league and low A and everything. And I think that uh, it's always good to take a shot on these guys. Um, Hidalgo, yeah, I mean, they say operates in the low 90s, topped out around 95. Other reports have definitely had him up to like 98 miles an hour. I should look on here. Um, yeah, I'll go to Baseball America because they seem to be a little more updated in that sense. Stood out last year as a 50-year-old, touching the low 90s with good physical projection. Stuff has spiked significantly to become one of the better lefties to come out of Latin America in recent years. He's grown to 6'4", 170 with a low effort delivery and an extremely fast arm to run his fastball up to 98, with room on his tall, lean frame that could eventually see him throw 100. They say it's already an elite fastball for a 16-year-old, pairs it with a bat missing slider that has potential. Hidalgo is just learning his changeup. Like most young, long limbed pitchers, he's still learning to repeat his delivery, throw consistent strikes, but the upside stacks up with any pitcher in this class. So, the thing to take away, yeah, he's long limbed. He has a big time fastball, once again, up to 98 miles an hour. This dude is only listed at 194 pounds, so presumably you get any kind of weight on him, and you got, like you've got fire from the left side, and yeah, they say plus slider. Actually, MLB Pipeline agrees with that, giving it a 60. They give the fastball a 60. They give the changeup a 45. Like with all these guys, due to like being so young, there is reliever risk if they can never figure out the control. There is, usually smaller arsenals because they are so young and will take time to develop. So anytime you see something like a pitch grade that is maybe below average, don't necessarily take that as in this will always be a fault of this person. I'm sure the Orioles are really excited to get their hands on this guy and be able to develop that a bit. And again, 16 years old. This guy's born in 2009, so yeah, super super young, but super excited about Hidalgo. Yeah, if we can kind of get a pipeline going here of young Latin American signees who throw triple digits, I think that's always a good place to be. And Mejia can lay the groundwork for that. That's very exciting. And so all in all, yeah, the Orioles have pulled five guys, and five guys from this international draft class that are in the top 50 for MLB Pipeline. I didn't actually give you the rating for him on Pipeline. They had him ranked as the 25th best prospect, and I will note once again, he was it per Pipeline. He was the top pitcher in the class. They valued him much more highly than Baseball America did, but again, I read you the Baseball America blurb. They're not knocking him necessarily by putting him down there. That's just inherent risk, and that's what prospect evaluators do. They hem and haw over how many pitchers should be where in their list and whatever. So, yeah, but super exciting time. The Orioles are reeling in $1 million free agent or $1 million signees, which is not a thing that used to I guess used to happen for us, you know. Um, I will note, uh, I should have their signings in front of me, but I forgot to do that. But pretty much everybody ranked in the top 50 or so is likely going to get $1 million at least. So, you know, these were pretty significant signings. Once again, Jose Luis Acevedo was over 2 million for us and tied our largest ever. So, um, yeah, these are premium prospects, super young, and they are like it is. I'm using my baseball brain here and ignoring all of the ethical ramifications of building these academies in Latin America for the time being. Um, it is really great to see the Orioles attacking this market, doing it with gusto. Kobe Perez, credit to him, obviously doing an incredible job. The academy that we built in the Dominican seems to be absolutely humming, and we are able to reel in a lot of premium free agents, and that only bodes well for the Orioles. Obviously, like Samuel Basayo is the best example of it. He is he's really good. And we pulled him from the Yankees for I think 1.2 million, if I'm remembering correct. So, you know, if you hit on one of these people, it pays back. You know, in surplus value, it pays back all of these signing bonuses for the next 15 years. Basayo is absolutely going to do that. So, you know, it is super, super high reward in these situations, and that's why the Orioles are going after it, and they are doing so well. Um, so kudos to the O's, kudos to Elias, and kudos to Kobe Perez. Exciting time, yeah. Three outfielders, shortstop, and one of the top pitchers in the class, up to 98 from the left side again. Um, yeah, it's good stuff. We'll keep watching them and eagerly awaiting their development. But okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about, this is because I have seen way, 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 and I mean way too much discussion about this individual. And I'm here to say the Orioles should not touch this man with a 15-foot pole. And I'm here to tell you why. And that person is Zac Gallen. there's there's been just too much discussion about it. He, you know, he had a great run. I I'll pull up his Savant page, you know, do him the proper respect. He had a great run. You know, when he was like 2022, 2023, man, like there were few better pitchers in the game of baseball. I am not trying to say that Zac Gallen, you know, like never had any value or anything like that, but I am saying that man, it's just not quite the same anymore. And we need to not value him as though he is the guy he was 3 years ago. Um, the couple things that I want to point out here, um, you know, going back to, I guess, 2022 was his best year. Four seam was at 94 miles an hour, 94.1 to be specific, had over 17 and a half inches of ride. Right now, it is 93.5 miles an hour, and it's just over 17 inches of ride. So he's lost a half mile an hour. He's lost, I think, 4/10 of an inch was what it was. It cuts a little bit less than it used to. I will show you 4.3 inches of tail now, as opposed to 3.4. So, you know, it's kind of like leaking back toward his arm slot, right? The way that these cut ride fastballs kind of work is they create separation from anything that's going arm side, and they tunnel very well. This, you know, as it is kind of losing that vert and moving like and losing the cut, it's kind of moving back toward arm side movement. It's gained an inch of arm side movement, I should say. You know, as it does that, it's going to separate itself less and less and less from these other pitches that he's trying to execute with, and that is really like that is the core of his arsenal. Um, was this cut ride fastball, and you know if we go back to 2022, um, you can see fastball run value. He put up 18 runs. Um, you know, primarily on the four seam fastball, good for 96th percentile in baseball. The I'll come down, just see the WOBA. Oh, I configured this a little bit already. Give me 1 second. Okay, so yeah, so back in 2022, the WOBA on that four seam fastball was a 256. That has blossomed in the last 2 years. 366 2 years ago, 319 this past year. And I will show you, like, in this past season, um, it basically was getting hit so hard, um, up at 325, 304, 314, 372 in April, that he actually added a sinker, and said, this fastball is not really doing it for me anymore, and I need to get more creative. Kind of the way that baseball is moving nowadays is you're creating these arsenals with multiple fastballs in particular, because it's really, really hard to distinguish a sinker from a cutter, from a four seam. Um, Part of the reason that these cut ride fastballs are becoming more popular, a la, Kyle Bradish, Corbin Burns, is because that cut ride fastball jumping up and a sinker with which you can really kill some vert can be a devastating tunnel between the two of them. And having multiple, primary fastballs, basically, or I guess not having a primary fastball and instead spreading it across multiple, prevents a hitter from sitting on a given movement profile, basically. And so you're going ahead, and with this cut ride, you're going ahead and saying, okay, if I can sink off of that, well, now I'm creating this gap, right? Either way, it's coming 95 miles an hour or so, with Kyle Bradish. It's coming 95 miles an hour. I guess I can pop him up while I'm here. Um, it's coming 95 miles an hour from Bradish, but now when you look at this, Bradish cuts his fastball 1.5 inches and his sinker has 11 and a half inches of tail. So both of these things are coming at you 94.4, 94.8, so 94, 95 miles an hour. And you now have to swing at one of two spots. And those two spots are 12 inches away from each other, a full foot of separation created, and they look the exact same out of the hand. That's really like why these multiple fastball arsenals are becoming more and more in vogue. So Zac Gallen, goes ahead and he says, man, I should probably get in on this sinker thing. And he starts throwing one. I guess I will go ahead and show, like, in July, he goes ahead and starts throwing it, not a lot, but something to just get people off pace. And ironically, if you go back to how he did throughout the year, July was his highest strikeout rate, lowest walk rate, uh, lowest FIP, lowest XFIP. Everything was good, and even the ERA. If you want to be simplistic about it, I just lost it. My goodness. All right. Well, we can go off of WOBA. It was his, like, third best month by WOBA. Batting average was down, slugging was down, OBP was down, everything from the previous months. So, introducing the sinker largely was really, really good for him. The problem is that the sinker then goes ahead and, like, starts to get smacked. I mean, if you look just at WOBA, in the month of September, I will say he only threw 9 of them. So obviously this is a very small sample, but, gave up 2 hits on 9 sinkers. I guess that's not too much, but, he kind of started to, I think, lose confidence in the pitch. The most sinkers that he threw was in July. I just misread, excuse me. The most that he threw was in August. Guess he, gained some confidence in July, kept throwing it in August, and really backed off in September. But, excuse me, I'm sorry. Coming back to pitch percentages, I think, one thing throughout the year, like, four seam usage consistently dropped. He started using his changeup more and more. started getting away from the knuckle curve a little bit. I think that the knuckle curve might have also been a bit of a victim of kind of moving. Um, how should I say, like, separating these tunnels. The knuckle curve still played really, really well, but as the Arsenal started to move a little bit, like the knuckle curve doesn't tunnel quite as well with the sinker. And the cut ride is really the thing I think that like works with that pairing wise. So, basically his Arsenal has been moving all over. And I feel like I stumbled through that, but that is the point that I'm trying to make is he's been moving this Arsenal around. He added in a new pitch. He has done all these things, and maybe there is a slightly better version of him um, as a result. But the net product here was awful. I mean, he was I shouldn't say awful, but he was not a good pitcher last year, right? He, threw 192 innings. That's wonderful. We love guys who can eat some innings, but this 4.8 ERA, and not that I'm an ERA guy, but the 4.8 ERA says a lot. He just like he's not the guy who's going to go out there and be a Cy Young contender. I guess he never actually won a Cy Young. I don't think. That's testing my memory a little bit, but um, yeah, I guess along with like seeing the physical change in that four seam, when he was at his height, it was also like better velocity for the league environment, right? He was throwing 94.5 and the league or 94.1 and the league was throwing 94.3, right? So he was perfectly average from the standpoint of um, of velocity. And this fastball with a lot of vert, playing at the top of the zone, maintaining good velocity through an outing, like the fastball was a dominant pitch. It was it was his primary pitch. It was the thing that he did, and that just cannot be the case anymore, right? In the game where velocity is growing as fast as it is, once again, like this was the first time ever, but the average fastball that a right-handed pitcher threw last year in 2025 was 95 miles an hour. The average fastball. And that is like that has to be factored in, right? Is that the game is progressing forward constantly, in so many different ways and not just velocity. There are actually like some studies that some velocity is starting to taper off, particularly like in top prospects. We are now like they're kind of pushed as far as they can go. And I think, well, needless to say, right-handed pitcher average fastball 95 miles an hour. And Gallen is losing velocity. He's losing that ride. He is losing the things that made this an outlier fastball. And the simplest thing to go look at is just Stuff Plus. And I will concede here that Stuff Plus has never, ever been a fan of cut ride fastballs. If I were to go ahead and pull up Mr. Kyle Bradish because we love him so much and look at his fastball here, you can see, yeah. So they give his primary fastball like it was an 87 last year. I'm sorry, 81 last year in 2025, 87 in 2024. It hasn't become 2026 yet for baseball seasons. I don't know if last season is really there's some semantics there, but 81 Stuff Plus on the fastball last year, 87 the year before, 92 in his borderline Cy Young season. So like Stuff metrics do not love the cut ride fastball. The cut ride fastball and its rise are purely about tunneling. They're about Arsenal effects. They're about all sorts of stuff that many people can describe a bit better than me. I'm sure I will try to at some point on this podcast. Try to continue to, I guess. But seeing the cut ride fastball that Gallen throws, it was a plus pitch, right? Again, like in 2022, it was a 112 per Stuff Plus. That is a plus pitch. Standard deviation is usually about 10 on these Stuff models. The ones normalized to 100. So, like, this four seam fastball being a 112 means it's, you know, a 60 grade, a plus pitch. It was a weapon, and it has fallen so far from that. You know, 100 in 2023, 95 in 24, 98 in 25, you know, gained a little bit back, but the sinker he was throwing was really weak. The cutter is not grading out very well. Slider has lost some. Changeup has never really graded out well. And the knuckle curve is actually a like subpar pitch as well, right? This guy is getting by on what is, you know, pretty good locations. I'll give him credit, but he just doesn't have the stuff to really beat people like that anymore. And the other thing that Zac Gallen brings with him that is, you know, not factored into any of this is he has a qualifying offer attached to him. So you go ahead and sign Zac Gallen. And granted, because the Orioles have gone ahead and signed Pete Alonso, this penalty would not be as serious because we've already lost a draft pick. I just misspoke. Alonso did not have a qualifying offer. Which pick did the Orioles lose already? It might just be that we traded our comp pick. That's what I'm thinking it is. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go with that for now. My brain is not functioning right now. But traded a comp pick in the Boz trade. So yeah, that is it. I'm sorry. So you lose the third pick because of our revenue sharing status and everything if we go ahead and sign one of these guys. So because we have already gotten a pick, the pick that we would lose instead of being our second round pick would then be our third round pick, somewhere in the 80s, if I remember correctly. That doesn't hurt so bad. But you know, like I'm not looking at this and saying, man, I need to sacrifice a little bit extra to go get Zac Gallen. That's just not, you know, like obviously I'm living in the world where Framber does something else. I'm not convinced that's the case. I don't know who else would sign Framber besides us, um, unless it's the Dodgers or the Mets doing something stupid. But that said, I digress. Um, you know, in that world, like I'm not touching Zac Gallen. It just the entire package is not what it used to be. He is already 30 years old, so you know maybe you get 1 year out of him, and that's fine. But are you sacrificing a draft pick for one fine year? No, no. I mean that's just not a good move. And if you want, you know, like people always joke about the Chad innings eater, but if you want a guy who's going to throw 192 innings with a 4.8 ERA, I mean, we could go get Chris Bassett. We could go get Verlander. Jesse talked to you about him a bit. You know, we could go get any number of people who will serve that role fine, maybe even cost a little less money. And at, you know, at the same time, they go ahead and they would not cost us a draft pick. So like, I see no reason to be interested in Zac Gallen whatsoever. The internet has gotten spooled up and they are you know, already I think this is like the nature of Orioles fandom is we just kind of preemptively crash out. I'm not saying that's totally wrong. Um, we, we have been hurt in the past. I get it. I concede it. But um, yeah, we don't have to set expectations this low. That this is yeah, this ain't it. He put up one WAR, 1.1 F WAR over 192 innings last year. I mean, like, I will pull up Chris Bassett right now. I mean, I guarantee that he just like wiped the floor with him across the board on results level stats. So he threw 170 innings. He went 396. He put up 2.4 WAR. You know, like it, man, if you want that, go get Chris Bassett. I didn't even bring up the strikeout rate. Um, yeah, you know, Gallen, like he struck out fewer guys. Well, you know, maybe based on innings, he did not. But the strikeout rate was just 21.5%. I mean, that's, you know, it's not Tomoyuki Sugano bad, but it's not good. And if I go ahead and think like let's see what Cade Povich did last year. I bet he's around there. Um, he actually struck out more, 24.2%. So, you know, like he's striking out hitters at a rate worse than Cade Povich. Um, Yeah, let's check out Dean. Dean is always, what us Orioles fans go to and say he's just meh. Okay, so he was slightly better than Dean. But Dean Kramer is not the bar at which you should hold your standard for strikeout rates. He is not a strikeout pitcher. And Dean Kramer also like 1.5 times, I'm sorry, 2.5 times the WAR that Gallen put up last year by Fangraphs WAR. So once again, like if you hear anybody, whether they are your favorite podcaster on earth or not, telling you, like your favorite content account, whatever, if you hear them telling you that Zac Gallen is an option for the Orioles, he is an option, but he's an option because nobody wants to go sign him, and neither do the Orioles. This is not a dude that we're into. Um, I will say I loved watching Gallen, and I appreciate him and his contributions to the game of baseball, but I just feel I have to do my very small part to nip this narrative in the bud. He is not the guy for us. The Orioles are trying to raise the ceiling of this team. We are trying to like add upside. And I mean, I genuinely like if Zach Eflin's health is in serious question, like maybe I would take Zac Gallen over him, but I am running out Dean Kramer ahead of Zac Gallen every day of the week. And it's like not particularly close in my mind. Dean was a significantly more effective pitcher last year in a number of ways, already understands his arsenal, is not like in the midst of a decline. Dean is not losing velocity. He is still fairly young. And yeah, I mean, certainly Gallen is not over, Bradish, Rogers, or Boz. So it's like, yeah, maybe he could step in for Zach Eflin for a little bit, but as soon as Eflin is fully healthy, I'd want Eflin. I do not see this as a feasible strategy for the Orioles. I would not understand in any way, shape, or form what it actually adds to the team. And yeah, just get that thought out of your mind, generally. That's all I got. Thanks for listening. This has been the Warehouse Podcast. As always, if you could be so kind, subscribe to the show, follow us, give us a heart, like, comment, whatever. We are always available to chat. I always plug it. Don't always plug it, but sometimes plug it. The Orioles on the Verge Discord. I'm in there chatting all the time. Love that community, and it's a lot of brilliant minds that are accruing in there. I really respect. Like, I think these are about as good as fan brains get. They're trying to hoard the good ones, so it's a great place to chat. Over on Blue Sky, thewarehousepod.bsky.social. And you can always email us, thewarehousepod@gmail.com. Yeah, recently been chatting with somebody on some trade proposals over there, a number of things. So good stuff happening. We appreciate the engagement always. We appreciate you guys listening to us. We are so very grateful. And I hope everybody, stays safe and warm through this through this snowstorm up there. I am in sunny Florida, and it's a little bit less sunny. If you are on YouTube, you can see I'm actually wearing a sweatshirt inside. It was in the 40s today, which I am not personally like freaking out about. I wore this sweatshirt, so don't get me wrong. I'm not completely forsaking my mid-Atlantic roots, but um, I it was surprisingly chilly. That like for Florida, this is not normal. And we actually this weekend are going to have lows in the 20s. Um, so yeah, I can only imagine what you guys are going through up there. So that's all I got. Appreciate you guys listening as always, and yeah, stay safe. Let's go, O's.